Are you looking to optimize your health? Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic True Health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 125. I am so thrilled to bring you today's guest. In fact, if you're an avid listener of the show, you have heard of our wonderful guest, Sarica Cernohous, who I was so inspired by in our last interview that I told her, I think multiple times during the interview, you have to come back. You have to come back. I'm pretty sure we broke the land speed record for the longest podcast I've ever recorded with you. And still there was more to talk about.
Oh, dear.
And it's funny, it's dangerous when we get together because instead of spending our usual 5-minute warm up before the podcast, we spent the last 30 minutes just talking about the gut biome and how fascinating it is and how fascinating people are and the influence between personality and gut biome, and that there's this interlinking quality of the more rigid someone is in their life, the more rigid someone is in their health and also in their gut biome, and it shows up. It's sort of this catch-22, and we were having this great discussion. The whole time I'm thinking, why am I not recording this? But
oh dear.
So I know my listeners will absolutely love to have you back on the show, and so I'm so happy you're here. Yeah, thank you for taking the time. And I know that we're going to talk about a lot of interesting things. In fact, you've spent years and years and years dialing in your own health and then helping so many people dial in theirs. And in fact, you've taken your method, the LAPIS Method, and taught for, what is it, over 5 years now to practitioners as well. So really thousands of people are using your technique.
Well, and that's a blessing. I feel so honored by that. I'm actually re-releasing pretty much this week the rewrite of my book, The Funky Kitchen. And when you've had something out there for a while, and you do work with other healthcare practitioners as well as the general public, over time, people become accustomed to your work and they know it. And so I was able to garner some really beautiful endorsements, nice things for people to say, testimonials, for the back of the book. And I mean it when I say I'm honored. It means so much to me that people listen to me and they value what I have to say, because there's a lot of good information out there. And I feel like what I've done with the LAPIS Method and with my work with the Funky Kitchen, which is my book, is I feel like I've kind of distilled it through my filter of how I can take in all this incredible information that I've had exposure to, and then put it back into a format that is a doable method, a doable technique for someone to engage, to really shift the dial on their vitality. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. I'm very honored and humbled. And truly so. So thank you, Ashley. And I love having this opportunity to share on this today, too.
Awesome. Well, I know we're in for a ride because, since I started my podcast just over a year ago, and I've been this complete health nut for the last 6 years and loving it, just wearing it like a badge of honor, as I'm sure most of my listeners in some capacity can relate, that they're wanting to learn more and more sort of isn't the norm, right? We're here kind of breaking away from the norm to learn about holistic medicine and how to heal our body and how to do it naturally, and maybe even how to gain balance to the point where we can get so healthy that we no longer need drugs or we no longer need a diet, in quotes, right?
Right.
We're all striving for that optimal health. And I was introduced to fermented foods way back, early on in the in starting this podcast. I had a pharmacist who he's thrown out the prescribing drugs to help people with holistic prescriptions, and very motivated by him. And I asked him sort of near the end of the show, I said, well, can you give us any tips? Like, what kind of challenge could you give us to gain health? And that's he brought up increasing fermented foods in the diet, and I was never really big into that, and I didn't even know the health benefits. I mean, I heard people say like acidophilus is in yogurt, right? But I wasn't really aware of it. I had kombucha once, and I had a bad reaction because I chugged the whole thing. And so I kind of said, this isn't for me, right?
Right.
This thing isn't for me. And I didn't even know at the time that, I felt very naive. I didn't even know that sauerkraut had live cultures. Like, I just thought that was something you put on your hot dog, and I don't eat hot dogs anymore, so I don't eat sauerkraut, So that was pretty much where I was at, right? And then he brought it up, right? And then a few episodes later, I had Dr. Megan Saunders on and talked all about kombucha. And I started off the interview going, that stuff's never touching my lips again. And by the end of the interview, I'm like, I can't wait to go get myself some.
Yay.
And so every few guests seems to bring up something to do with fermented foods. And I kept hearing this over and over and over again, like that little whisper the universe is saying, fermented foods, fermented foods. And so I started to do little things, like once in a while have some, kombucha, and once in a while maybe get some sauerkraut. But beyond that, I didn't really do anything until I had our first interview with you, and you explained how you dialed in a way of healing, and fermented foods were at the foundation of this. Yeah. I have to tell you that after our interview, I went out and I got my own kit for making sauerkraut.
Oh, wow.
And I did it and it was delicious. And I actually fermented a ginger as well.
Oh, yay!
And that was fun. And then I brought my first batch with me to Passover dinner last night at my friend's house. And they loved it. And then I think I got 2 orders. People were like, I will pay you for this.
Oh, my goodness, sweetie.
I had a raw vegan tell me that she'd pay me for my I need to start a business making sauerkraut. And
cottage industry.
The trick was, I know, right? The trick was I did the ginger first. So I put it in the food processor, made it really thin slices, and then massaged it for a few minutes just with the salt, no water. And that brought a lot of juice out. And then this wouldn't make it vegan, but I added some raw honey. I just intuitively was going through this. I added a little bit of raw honey and some water, and then there's a lot of juice left over. So I used that brine for the red cabbage. So it was ginger, honey, brine for the red cabbage, which was amazing. And I had to ferment it for like a week. Because it's not really warm in my house. It's still kind of...
No, it's not.
It's not warm. But, I mean, this is my first batch, and it turned out great, and it's really easy. I thought it'd be hard. It's super easy. I can't believe it. And now I'm looking on the internet going, okay, I want to make water kefir. Okay, what do I do? I'm going to so now I'm kind of searching that. I know that I'm just right at the beginning of this, and I feel like I'm going down a rabbit hole, and in 5 years I'll be like you.
You totally will be. Probably less than that, because I didn't have someone like me in my life.
Yeah, I have you, exactly. And we have the LAPIS method and your amazing training. And that's exactly why I wanted to have you back on the show, so you could share about this awesome training you have where you can hold our hand and walk us through it. And there's these really cool lab tests from you send our stuff to Germany. And and I want you to tell us all about it, because I'm just so fascinated, because what you really uncovered is how to do metabolic balancing, how to help us on a cellular level balance the body, and as a result people are losing weight naturally. And what I've been seeing show up a lot in recent years are all these studies of where they take random fat people and random thin people, and they find that across the board, those who are just naturally thin, they can eat stupid food like burgers, and they don't gain weight. they have a diversity in their gut biome, meaning they have they do have a lot of gut bacteria, but they have a diversity. So they have a wide range of different kinds of healthy bacteria. And those that are all the people that they tested in the obese group may have had the same amount of gut bacteria, but they had a lower diversity. So it's sort of like the difference between being in, New York City and seeing a diversity in ethnicity versus being in Middle America and seeing a less of a diversity in ethnicity. Same amount of population or concentration in a town. But it's the same diversity. And so like you had mentioned in our other interview, it was like the Homer Simpson of gut bacteria, where it was the kind of gut bacteria. It's really, really, really helpful in digesting and absorbing sugar. And that's what makes us fat. And so I thought, man, my gut is full of the Homer Simpson bacterias. I need to get some gut biome diversity going.
Well, and you are on the track, my friend. I mean, that's the beautiful thing, Ashley, is, it's important to do it, I think, the way you're doing it. Because like you said, back in the day, you guzzled a big old glass of kombucha, a big bottle of that, and it made you feel sick. Not good. And, as we talked about in our last discussion, it really just begs repeating. The flavor profile of these types of foods does not say, eat a ton of me. But what it does say is have a little bit, and I'm a nice adjunct to the other things that you're eating, whether it be a hot dog or a grass-fed burger or, some fermented tofu or something. So the flavor of these foods, they're unique. They have a very lively place on the tongue, but it's not like a huge bowl of soup that you just want to really get into. It's a totally, you know what I mean? And they're both so good for you, but in very different ways.
It is. And after our interview, I tried water kefir for the first time. There's different kinds. There's kinds that are bubbly and kinds that aren't. And I had like a coconut one that wasn't bubbly. Okay. And I opened it up and took a swig and proceeded to make the weird face you make when you can't believe what you just because it was like it had layers of flavor. The first flavor was coconut. I was like, oh, this is nice. Preceded by an aftertaste of blue cheese.
Ooh.
And I was like, that was unexpected. I actually like blue cheese, but not wasn't expecting it in a drink, and it doesn't pair well with coconut. So what was weird is that the first sip I took, I was like, I am never drinking this again. I'm like, I want my money back. 5 minutes later, I want another sip.
Isn't that weird?
And it was like my body was telling me.
I know. I think that is so amazing. And it's true. I mean, and that's one of the points I make in the Funky Kitchen is, a person can follow my suggested recipe on like brined radishes or something. And I have to say, my book is not full of recipes. It's about technique. But because of the landscape, the bacterial landscape, the humidity landscape, the soil landscape on the actual radishes themselves, all of those things are going to have impact, so that one person's brined radishes are going to turn out different than the next person's. It's, the French, they speak of the terroir. And that is what we're talking about here. This is the territory of the kitchen that these foods are being prepared in the city and the state, all of that. And so what happened there, with your coconut water kefir is something that if we were to use coconut water at my house and work with some water kefir to do a second ferment on that, it might taste wholly different than what you tasted out of that bottle. In fact, I'm sure it would. And it would also have bearing, the amount of time that we actually allow it to ferment. There's just so much that goes into that. And so it's always going to be a little bit different from place to place. And I love that you are taking note of the different notes that you experience. So the hit of blue cheese that you got on that Honestly, very well could be the same bacterial species that gives blue cheese its flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, they're not unique to a given food. And so you very well may have had that species right there in that coconut water kefir.
Cool.
I know, it's so groovy. And so it's just such a beautiful thing. And when I developed, the funky kitchen material and all of this fermenting and the pre-digestion like we were talking about, I just had gotten so out there with these types of techniques. And when I was in the early stages of promoting my book, that's when I came upon also some information around this program from Germany called Metabolic Balance. And to me, it felt like the perfect bridge between being this person who fermented everything and really where most people needed to be in relation to food and wellness and vitality. And Metabolic Balance is actually a plan from Germany that's been in use for over 2 decades. And it is based off of a person's lab values. And those lab values plus the health history and the health goals, that's all taken into consideration. And then the plan is generated for that person in Germany. And what comes back is not, oh, you need to take this supplement and, do this and that. It's actual food that comes back on the plan. That's what shows up. And so at the beginning of someone's plan, we are working with food as medicine to begin to dial back the imbalances that are shown in the lab work, and of course to help meet the health goals of the person. And so at the very beginning of the plan, what we're doing is we have to stay very strict to the foods that are on there. So for instance, if lemon isn't on someone's plan, then lemon juice is not going to be going on their salads, at least not at the beginning of their plan. There's evidence that the body has what it needs related to lemon at that point. So we have to be working with other foods for different nutrient profiles to begin to really make these shifts, these into building a new version of the body.
So can I just stop you? So it's not that they can't eat lemon at the time because they have a sensitivity to it. It's that they're not eating lemon because the body has everything it needs from lemon, and we need to focus on the foods that the body is lacking the nutrients and lacking the bacteria from.
Yes, exactly. And I have to say, it's if somebody comes to work with me and it's very clear that they are aggravated by most foods and they say, I can only eat, like 6 or 7 foods, I won't do this plan for them because they will not be able to take advantage of the variety of foods that are going to be put out there. And in fact, in Germany, they will not create a plan if there are too many stipulations on, okay, they don't eat this and they don't eat this and they don't eat this. There's a limit to how many things we can restrict. And so that's part of why before I even look to create a plan with someone, I get to know them. Because if it's not a right fit, it's not a right fit. And there can be other things we can look at doing, but it's not going to be working with the framework of metabolic balance and the LAPIS method. Thankfully, most people that I work with, they're not that sick. And if they are, like I say, there are other things that we can look at, and I very well may end up referring them to one of the other professionals that I work with, who can really dig deeply into those issues. So I don't ever want someone to feel that there's not an answer of support for them, but it may not be this plan. So this is something that, yes, at the beginning, it's not because of a food sensitivity to lemon, but rather the body's calling for instead the nutrition of mango or papaya or something like that. And so that's what shows up on the plan. And so for the first few phases of working together through the plan, that's exactly what we're doing is we're working with the variety of foods that are there, plus the structure, which is truly, Ashley, the thing that moves the dial in terms of, okay, great, I've lost some weight here at the beginning. the thing that helps a person to maintain the weight that they've attained and the reduction in cellular inflammation and the more optimized life is continuing to work with the framework that is put into place at the beginning of their plan of what I call the 8.5 rules. And that's actually something that is my gift to the listeners is just, those are written out with a brief explanation of why they exist. And it's for good reason. Like I say, this is a plan that was, it's been in existence for nearly 3 decades. It's been used throughout Europe and other parts of the world, but it's pretty new to the United States. And so there are hundreds of thousands of people who have used the plan successfully. And the thing that carries the volume going forward in terms of success with the effort that's been put in at the beginning is adhering to those rules. And so that is how people can have success and maintain success. It's certainly what's happened in my life.
Very cool. And that can be accessed through learntruehealth.com/lapis, which is LAPIS. And that link is also going to be in the show notes of today's podcast. I wanted to make sure I made it easy for listeners to access those rules. Awesome. That is the gift that you're giving us and helping us to begin to open up and explore this area. So I want to go back and clarify a few things that you brought up. But first,
sure. Can
you share a testimonial? You were sort of telling me about a woman that has had a positive impact, but for those especially, so mm-hmm. I know that statistically there's a growing percentage of us who have weight issues. And what's really amazing is that even with calorie restriction, we can still have mm-hmm. weight issues because calories isn't it's what the calorie is made up of. So if you're eating carbs versus fat versus protein and versus, mm-hmm. Is it nutrient dense? Is it a dead food and there's no bacteria? Is it so there's so many factors. It's not just calories in, calories out, but there's an increase in chemicals that we're being exposed to, obesogens, which are these chemicals that are on our food, and also off-gassing from our office furniture, from the cleaners that at night who come and clean, and then we come into our office and we're breathing that in, or we're going into other buildings. But we're being exposed to on a daily basis to these estrogen disrupting chemicals and obesogens, and so our body's having to just fight for its life to mm-hmm. detox. We're not increasing our nutrient load to compensate for the toxic environment that we're living in.
Right.
They're finding that there are toxins from, for example, factories in China. They can actually trace mm-hmm. to here. So we're being exposed not only just to local stuff, but also, internationally. The planet is being exposed to chemicals. So we need to figure out a way to increase our defenses and increase our body's ability to process and eliminate toxins on a healthy level. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the body then, as a compensation, will store these toxins away from the organs in fat tissue. And and then when we go to actually try to lose weight, we end up becoming overtoxic. And this has been mm-hmm. the story of my adult life in my weight loss journey. And so, I can really have empathy for my listeners who are also struggling, even if it's 5 pounds or if it's 50 or if it's 200. We want to get to a point where we're not on this dieting kick all the time. We want to just eat healthy to feed the body, because weight loss and a healthy weight should be the result of a healthy lifestyle.
Yes.
Right. So having said that, do you have any testimonials of success that you'd like to share?
Well, I don't have any written down in front of me. But what I have seen happen time and again in the years that I've been working with Metabolic Balance has been, part of what we have to do with it is we have to come up with a goal weight. That is what the plan is generated. That's part of what it's generated on. And so it's this kind of, I think I'd like to weigh about this much kind of answer. And for some people, that's a very important thing at the beginning. For other people, it's like, well, I'm not real sure. Regardless, what I see happen very quickly as people begin to dial back the patterns of cellular inflammation that are showing up as, brain fog and as joint pain and as, fatigue and a lack of a deep reserve of energy, unless you have like a cup of coffee or something. When we see that beginning to resolve, that goes into how the mind starts to look differently at what true health is. And so the weight continues, to work its way down as the body continues to optimize in terms of wellness. But what I see happen so often is the goal weight becomes such a far distant concern, and rather it's, whoa, how do I continue to make myself feel better? You step into a completely different frame of mind. I mean, because what happens is, most people, we could talk all day about how important it is to feel healthy and good and everything. But what I have seen in my years of practice is one of the things that really gets people moving is pain. Pain does not feel good. And so they will make some change if they're in a lot of pain. And that can be digestive or certainly throughout the rest of the body. But I think the thing that really moves people is weight gain and not being able to lose weight. And so in my mind, the weight gain is just a symptom of the rest of the life being out of balance. And it shows up like this. Now, Ashley, I have to make this super clear as I say this. It is something that everybody's optimized weight is completely different from person to person. My frame is to be on the taller, thinner side. That's just who I am. And my kids are that way kind of too. And whereas, like for instance, my mom, she's more of a muscular build. Whereas, I have other people in my family that are really more full figured. I mean, like out the gate, more full figured. And so when I'm talking about weight, I'm talking about optimization that is right for that body type, for that person. I was not put on this world to make every person skinny. That's not my job. I have no interest in that. But
your name's not Jenny Craig.
My name is not Jenny Craig. Very good. But what I do have an interest in, like wholeheartedly, is helping each person to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And that is something that's an evolution that comes as we start to unearth, these patterns of cellular inflammation, and that starts to go away. And we do start thinking more clearly, and we do have more energy, and we do realize when we're actually hungry or when we're actually full. It's amazing to me how out of touch we are with the signals from our body. And to begin to get that clarity, it's like a key opening a lock. I mean, it is so brilliant to finally feel like you're communicating with your body. And so to me, that's what starts happening very quickly at the beginning of working with someone's plan with them. And that is why at the beginning, there tends to be a rather significant weight loss that happens. And I make it plain as day, and I say it right here, it's not because we're shedding a bunch of fat. What we're shedding is the water weight of cellular inflammation. These chronic inflammatory patterns, because of lifestyle and the things that we're exposed to, whether we want to be or not, this all adds up to exactly as you say, the adipose tissue becomes a storage depot of where this toxicity goes when, the liver and the kidneys and the lymph have not cleared it successfully. And so as someone begins to make changes in their lifestyle, notably around their diet, with the beginning phases of this, what we're doing is we're immediately turning around the noise that's happening in the bloodstream. We are reducing the impact of constant blood sugar being elevated, and then in turn, of course, insulin being elevated. the cell membrane of any cell in our body, I think of it like a puffer fish. And, if the puffer fish is happy and relaxed in the ocean, then the little tines, its little pokers, they're out there just kind of floating around. But when the puffer fish becomes stressed for some reason, it puffs up and all those tines, they become blunted and we don't see them anymore. I think of cellular health very much the same way. And what causes our cell to go from something that has all these wonderful little tines on it, and what those tines are, those are receptors. Those are receptors for different hormones, for fats, for blood sugar. That's how every cell in our body communicates with what's in the bloodstream. So when we have a lot of noise happening in our bloodstream because of toxicity through diet and lifestyle and whatnot, the receptors become blunted. And so we can have a ton of testosterone or human growth hormone or DHEA or insulin, whatever that can be out there in the bloodstream. But if the receptors for this information are blunted, it is noise. It is absolute noise. And the information's not getting into the cell. And then the cellular processes, the fomentation that's happening in terms of cellular respiration and metabolism, that doesn't get out of the cell. And so we become very toxic. And we just kind of live in this chronic, toxic, inflamed state. And so one of the stopgaps that we do at the very beginning of working with someone in their LAPIS Method program is we start to turn that around very quickly, where we're using food as medicine. And actually the first 2 days of someone's program, I've set it up differently than how Metabolic Balance does. The way that I like to work with people is we look at what one of their proteins is that they've been chosen, and then we look at the veggies that are on their plan, and we do a mono diet for the first 2 days. And it's a mono diet that is going to be made up of a soup of whatever that protein was, plus whatever veggies were chosen. And that's what's eaten for 3 meals for 2 days. And in fact, my latest client that I'm working with, we knew with her going into this that she was a lot of cellular inflammation, a lifestyle that was definitely lending itself toward that. And she knew it. And she said, Sarica, I'm feeling like I'd like to even extend the soup one more day if that's okay to do that. She said, I really feel like I'm needing just this cleansing. And I said, that's fine. We can do that. And I just stayed in contact with her. This week of clearing this cellular toxicity has been something where she's really, had her moments of challenge with it. At times it has overwhelmed her capacity to clear it comfortably. And most people that I work with, they're able to go through those first couple of days, and there may be a slight headache or something. But in her instance, there it was ebbing and flowing with headaches, and recognizing that she had degree of toxicity that continued to need to be released from the system. But she was staying nourished. And I'm telling her, this is not your time for exercise. And I was giving her suggestions on other things she could be doing to help clear that from her system. And here it is. It's a week later. She said this morning, 5.2 pounds lost. And she is feeling so much more clear and resolved because she knew there was going to be a rough patch here at the beginning. Again, I saw her presentation being rougher than most, but she knew it was for her own best health and that it was going to be this transition period. So I applaud her. It's amazing when you see the fortitude that someone has when they just say, I am ready to really, really be healthy. And she's a single mom, and she's doing it also because she doesn't want her 3 daughters growing up with the lifestyle that she had created. She wants to have them see her being healthy so that they do the same for themselves. So that's how it starts, is working with a couple days of a mono diet, and immediately, so in this client's case, what's happened is the weight that has shifted has been this cellular inflammation, toxic weight. And so what's happening now and what will continue to happen as we work together is her little scared pufferfish cells, they are going to get softer and more pliable, and they're going to become more receptive to the sex hormones, the thyroid hormones, the adrenal hormones, all of that information in her bloodstream. It's going to be there as it has been, but now it's actually going to be communicating, getting into her cell, and everything starts functioning better.
I think of blood sugar and insulin and insulin resistance and that people can have really high blood sugar. And high blood sugar is so pro-inflammatory and carcinogenic for the body. But you can also at the same time have high insulin. So for those who don't know, insulin attaches to the its receptor on a cell, and it tells the cell to open up and pull in the blood sugar right into the cell, and so the cell can turn that into energy. But when the cell is not receptive to the insulin anymore, so it's become like you've said that there's now so much cellular inflammation that the insulin's not really getting to the receptor, or something's gone on in that the body's become so much blood sugar, so much insulin, and what's going on with the cell and the receptors that it's not functioning properly, right? So it could be a combination of eating a high sugar diet for a long period of time. It could be a combination of a lot of inflammation. Now that you bring them to a place where for a few days they're on this mono diet, cleansing. And I love the idea of soups for a few days because it's already sort of pre-digested. It's soft. It's hydrating. It's obviously nourishing if it's filled with vegetables and a protein source, and some natural fat, I'm imagining. And so that's something that's just very nourishing and gentle for the body. And after a few days, they're noticing that the inflammation's coming down, but it's also something that is easier, more of a neutral blood sugar sort of diet for a few days. And so that's helping the body kind of calm down there. Yep. And everything is interrelated. Blood sugar is related to stress hormone, and that all plays a role with sex hormones. And so that all comes into a nice balance. And within a matter of days, I like that. Yeah. Now, so once someone has gone through the first phase and now they're going to begin to introduce food, what's it look like next?
Yeah. So this is where we get into what you call modified phase 2. And modified phase 2 is when we are working with the foods that have been selected for your plan, but we're not using any added oil. And this is a 12-day portion. Now, any person who knows me knows that, like, I am the queen of butter. I love butter, and I use butter and ghee everywhere. And so this is something that I take very seriously. The Metabolic Balance takes it very seriously. But the reason for this is because it's a little bit twofold. One, when a person comes off of that mono diet, and there's going to be some trace fat that's been in the soup, of course, if it's been chicken we've been working with or something like that. But when they come off of that mono diet, needless to say, their palate is already starting to be much more cleaned up, and food already tastes brighter and fresher as a result of that. So by the time they get into some food, other than their soup after those first couple days, it's like, oh, that tastes so good. So that's an important thing, because in Western culture, we have created such flavor enhancement for everything. And I mean, there are different excitotoxins that are a common part of even, different vegetarian foods, or things that should be, good for us. They bring the flavor up with those things by using certain yeast extractives, and they're really MSG derivatives that are excitotoxins on the brain. So it takes a food that maybe wouldn't have much in the way of flavor, and it really amps it up. So what we're doing is we are helping to retrain the body and the palate and the brain to recognize the spectrum of real flavor. And part of the way that that happens is by not using a lot of added oil for the next 12 days. Oils and fats, they really kind of coat the tongue, and they have that flavorfulness about them. So this lets us come into contact with what foods really taste like without that kind of exclamation point on them. And then the other reason is because it engages our body with starting to say, okay, the fat's not here in this meal, which there can be trace fats. I mean, like for instance, with the plan, if someone shows up that they are going to be working with yogurt, it needs to be a whole fat yogurt. If they have eggs on their plan, it's the whole egg.
So it's not about being low fat. It's just no adding fat to the food or to the cooking process for 12 days. That's right.
Got it. For 12 days, exactly. So I do want to be clear on that. So no, there's definitely fat there, just naturally occurring. But that also gets the body leaning on its own fat reserves a bit for a longer burn on the nutrition that's been consumed. And that's a huge part of what we're doing with the plan here. So this is one of the 8.5 rules is from the completion of one meal to the start of the next, you need to have a minimum 5-hour break.
I love that. I loved when you brought that up in our first interview because it completely shifts my mindset that, if food's always available, I can graze and I can do things like skip a meal and then eat way too much late at night. And I'm just not really being responsible for making sure that every meal has all the nutrition it needs in it, has all the healthy food groups in it. Totally. And because, I can just go to the fridge anytime I want, right? And then that becomes really lazy. I don't have any junk food in my house, but I can still manage to figure out how to eat lazily. So like, I'll just have a banana, and then it's 2:00 and the only thing I've eaten is a banana and I'm feeling lightheaded. That's not responsible for me, right? No. And so with your program, I loved it when you said that there's this minimum of 5 hours in between meals and that each meal is really intentional with the, healthy fats and lots of vegetables and healthy whole grains, meaning like brown rice, for example, would be a whole grain. And that you're looking, and then of course a healthy protein source. And it's I remember you said one protein source. One protein source. Like the other day I made like a stir fry that had like 5 different, I think it had every animal under the sun in it. And I was like, oh, this probably is not easy to digest. One protein source, lots of vegetables, healthy fat, and a whole grain. And then you go for a minimum of 5 hours in between meals and only drinking water. So you're just hydrating. And then if you wanted to have coffee or juice or something, you'd have it with your meal so that you really, it's sort of like, I imagine it's sort of like I'm hiking. And I'm at base camp in the morning and I'm going to have my very intentional meal because I know for the next 5-6 hours I'm hiking and I won't have access to a fridge. So I want to make sure I'm feeding my body everything it needs, not overeating, but feeding it everything it needs. And then I'm going to go out and live my life for the next 6 hours, not thinking of food.
Totally.
And that was so cool when you said that because it really, I've been thinking a lot about that because I've done a bunch of, I'm sure my listeners have as well, cleanses where it involves fasting. And that is such a pain in the butt. And oftentimes it's like I feel dizzy and sick and, the body's fully toxic and then it's stressing the liver and how are we going to get these toxins out? I've done juice fasts and grapefruit fasts and just water fasts and you name it. I've tried it all. But with your thing is so cool because it's kicking on fast mode for short bursts.
Yes.
And that is so neat because it's just allowing the body to use up all the nutrients you ate, using up all the energy, right? And then just dipping a little bit into, it's sort of like the opposite of a savings account, right?
Yeah.
if our fat was a savings account, you'll want to dip into it, right? And so you're just dipping in a little bit in between each meal. and
Right.
and that was like so brilliant. Now, like, did
Isn't
you
that
come up
nice?
with this, or was this
No.
the thing in Germany? Like, who came up with
This
this
is
idea?
no, it was Dr. Wolf Funfak was his name, is the man who created the structure around metabolic balance. And I tell you from a personal perspective, I was really needing this because I was eating, fermented foods, and as mentioned, I mean, I'm not a heavy person. It would take a lot for me to be a heavy person. I don't quite know how I would do it, to be honest with you. However, when I hit about 41 or 42, I really started noticing that I was starting to carry some weight in the middle of my body, different than I used to. And that was with still eating, traditionally prepared diet, organic, I mean, all the right things. And I thought, so this is kind of what the 40s looks like. And I was not so loving it. And so that, and I thought I was just doing it all right. So when I found Metabolic Balance, it was exactly the missing piece for me, because it gave me that structure. I mean, the food was already, I was already pretty darn solid with the food. The structure for me was the thing. And, here it is a number of years later, and it continues to totally be that. And that's amazing to me, because you're exactly right. And I'm getting ahead of the plan here, but the intent of this is that we dial back the cellular inflammation, we give you the solid framework, and then you work with the framework so that, you go out in the world and you eat what you want to eat. Now, that being said, I'm not a person who ever is going to have a tendency toward eating like, deep fried mozzarella sticks or anything. That's like not a good idea. I don't like the way that sounds. But I might want to go out and, have a really delicious, locally sourced pizza with clean ingredients. And I'm not going to do that every day of the week, but, maybe once every 2 weeks, I'll go out and do that with the family. Or, at the end of a meal, having a little bit of gelato, for one of these meals or something. So my desire around food is already clean, and I know that. But when I want to kind of go off rails a little bit, it's no problem. It's not like I wake up the next morning and my face is broken out and I'm all bloated and I feel horrible. That does not happen. And so, and that's in large part because of the structure that I continue to uphold, that I learned through Metabolic Balance. And so the structure is so, so key. It is the thing that allows a person to go back into the world, eat the foods that they want to eat in moderation, but just by alone following the structure, that is going to take care. Once you've already dialed back the cellular inflammation with working, with your specific foods at the beginning of your plan, it's brilliant. I mean, it's so good, but it requires engagement. It's not that it's going to just happen, just because we read the information. It's something that requires continuing to do it so that it maintains all the good work that you've put in at the beginning.
Now, the fermented food aspect, that's your influence, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, because you've married these two modalities very well, which that really speaks to your background in traditional Chinese medicine. But you've married the aspect of traditional being live foods, cultured foods, bringing that together, more whole foods. Bringing that together with the Metabolic Balance method, and so the LAPIS, that you created that acronym?
Yes, I did. And it's learning about, the client, about what their needs are, where they've been, the assessment of that, and then, creation of the plan and implementation of it is the I, implementation of the plan. And then the S is the supercharge. And because I work closely with the people that I bring into the plan, the supercharge can take different directions. So I have people that I've worked with who really feel comfortable with wanting to expand their knowledge on traditional food preparation. And so that might be the way that I'll give them some additional information around that. But for everybody, what I do is anytime, anybody wants to talk about that, I will let them know, why it's a good idea to do it. And I'll give them some direction. But some people really want to do a deep dive into that. And I have the coursework around that. But what everybody gets, and we've touched on it a few times in our discussion, are the other lifestyle things that through, nearly 2 decades of being a natural health care practitioner, I've come to appreciate as being foundational to helping to keep that pattern of cellular inflammation in check. And so it's support around best practices for sleep and meditation, recognizing, if a person's just having food cravings versus, kind of the rough waters of actual food addiction, and connecting with someone, who can give greater support that way. Also, of course, looking at the obesogens that we talked about related to body care, home care, just helping people to see the broader vision of their life so that it's not just about food, but it's actually an entire lifestyle upgrade, so that you maintain this level of vitality, and not just maintain it, but allow it to continue to slowly grow over time. Because what I've seen is that it's like a synergistic move, it builds up rather than spirals down. And our body really wants that. And quite honestly, like what you were saying, Ashley, about, we've got all this nonsense that, here we are living in North America and we have stuff coming in from China, it's the same ecosystem. I mean, we're all inside this little aquarium together. And, so the choices that we make, you don't throw away trash. I mean, trash goes to a landfill, and then that it doesn't go away.
Or like all the, do you know that cosmetics with the plastic beads in it? They're now finding that is actually killing the fish in the ocean.
Exactly.
And I feel so guilty. I know I've used a few of those cosmetics in my, earlier years, and now just knowing that those little tiny plastic beads that were so good at exfoliating the skin are killing fish in the ocean, and that, you'll see these aerial views of the in the ocean, these garbage islands just filled with plastic bags. And we every Thursday or every Friday when you've got your garbage day, and you've every 2 weeks you have recycle day, and a lot of cities still don't have mandatory recycling, and and then there's the whole controversy as to like is that recycling plant actually do they practice the best practices? So there's it's so frustrating to know that I feel guilty every time this garbage day. I feel guilty. I'm thinking, how do I decrease my waste? And part of that is maybe growing a garden, or, there's little things that we can do to decrease the waste, because that waste is affecting our environment and our children's environment, the plastics and, like you said, the obesogens. So, but seeing how we interact with our environment is how our environment then interacts with us and our health, and it's all coming back full circle. And hey, the factories in the U.S. are affecting the people in China. It's this. That's right. We're all affecting each other, and we need to But on an individual level, we can do things like shop locally, because that's going to be the healthier,
less of a footprint.
Yeah, but there's this controversy about whether global warming exists or not, right? So some people believe it does, some people believe it doesn't. And my whole thing is, what happened to acid rain? Do you remember in the 80s?
Right.
Big conversations about acid rain. So I was, I was a kid in the 80s, but I distinctly remember in between watching, music videos of Michael Jackson, there's news reports of acid rain, and I was afraid to go outside because I was going to get my face melted off by the acid rain.
I know.
And then it was like the 90s happened, and no more talk of acid rain, and then all of a sudden it's global warming. But I hate the language global warming, because what they have done is they've stopped saying pollution.
Correct.
They've stopped saying we are killing ourselves slowly because we are polluting the fish tank we live in.
That's right.
And instead it's become this it's sort of like back in World War One, it was called, what was it called? Shell shock, right? And now they call it, and they just started calling it less and less of a, George Carlin has a great stand up about this, about how the language went from being very harsh and real to being very distant and medical. And so the word, global warming, you can kind of brush it off and move on with your day. But if I said, know, acid rain and, burns. And like cancer pollution, then maybe we're going to start looking at the factors around us, or start looking at, where we shop or where we get our food, or where we get our belongings, and go, wait, is this furniture filled with flame retardants that are off-gassing and slowly killing my whole family?
That's right.
Or is it organic cotton, And so we can actually find locally sourced furniture that's organic, and or we can get, shop within a 50-mile radius, or try to at least. But there's lots of ways that we can look at our outward environment, because our outward environment and all of our choices directly affect our inward environment.
It's so true. And I do not know how it is that humans got so removed in their thinking, or at least Western humans, that we're somehow untouched by it.
I think it's because we stopped farming. We stopped.
It's a huge part of it.
100 years ago, we all put our fingers in the dirt. And when we grow our own food, we have a relationship to the earth. Right. But we stopped, have to honor it. We stopped having a relationship with the earth. We stopped honoring where we're getting our food from, where we're getting the earth taking care of us. And now we're acting like we're untouchable. We're acting like a bunch of 18-year-old boys. Like we're completely untouchable.
It's so true. And it's exactly that. I mean, it's very humbling when you realize, gosh, I just turned on the water faucet and no water came out. Now what? And that has happened in communities where I've lived, because they're drought communities. And I don't wish that on anyone. I mean, I certainly don't want that. But I think that there is such a laissez-faire attitude that we have adopted without even knowing we've taken it whole hog. The design of living is, we do want to make it as easy as possible. Well, we've done that. And in doing so, we have made it so that we're sick. We're sick in our mind. We are sick in our relationship to the world, and we're physically sick in our body. And what we have to do, and what we're doing, like in the LAPIS Method, is I'm helping people to walk through a little bit of stress so that they can be that better version of themselves. It's not natural to not want to eat the food that's just totally readily available to us anywhere, in our fridges, in the stores, wherever. I mean, the food is so readily available to us because it's the first time in the history of humanity that this has been the case. And so until recent times, when the food was there, you did eat it. You did make that happen. Well, now it's there, and we do it all the time. And so we have to get in our own way. We have to play a bit of a mental game with ourselves so that we begin to tap back into what it is that our body really is needing, as opposed to what's available to us. And so that's part of what we're doing here. Yeah, it's uncomfortable to detoxify a little bit. Not everybody feels those feelings, but a lot of people do.
And the more sensations, this is what I've learned from some naturopaths, is the more detox symptoms you're experiencing when you're detoxing, especially with something as gentle as go 5 hours in between really healthy meals, or eat 3 days worth of nourishing soup. The more detox symptoms you have, that means, first of all, maybe the more toxic your body was, but also the more compromised your liver was, and the more it signifies how empty and how depleted your nutrient reserves, your nutrient tanks were. Those who are really fully nutrified have a much easier time in gentle detoxes, because the liver can lean on your nutrient stores to help break down and remove and eliminate toxins. And so it's a great indication. I think everyone should at some point do this. I think the LAPIS method, I mean, the more and more you describe it to me, more I think is just absolutely brilliant. And I think so many people should go through it. But in gentle, healthy, nourishing cleanses, it simply as a test to see where you are, right? So if you have intense headaches and dizziness and all that stuff, that may be an indication that you're really nutrient deficient, and down the road you're going to experience a lot more issues if you keep going the way you're going. Whereas if you don't have any symptoms at all, great, maybe you've been on the right path, and maybe you just need a few more tweaks and or if you fall somewhere in between, it's like, hey, this is a good time to make this transition. You're not completely like hit rock bottom, but it's so good to make this transition now. And so if you just get a few slight headaches, it's like, okay, this is such good news. So I think people can take that, whatever symptoms they have during their gentle cleanse as a great litmus test for where their body is. And no matter what, it's positive feedback because they're making corrections.
Darn tootin'. I absolutely love that. And that is so right. And, it is exactly that. One thing that, because I practice acupuncture, and, a lot of people really do what they can to make their period symptoms stop. So they'll go on the pill and they'll take medication and all of this. And, that was a big wake up call to me in Chinese medicine. And when I was studying it, of holy cow, women have this entire other thing that happens for them that is a tremendous litmus test every month of where they are in their health. And in the West, what we do is we just tamp all that down, but
take your ibuprofen and drink a bunch of coffee and eat chocolate and just keep on trucking.
Keep on trucking. Exactly. And the thing is it's such a sign of the imbalance in the body. And so this is another way that whether you're male or female, we can get that information. Yeah. Oh, that was a rough detox. Yeah. Well, from what we talked about with your case history, I kind of thought it might be, whatever the thing is. And we can prepare for that and just, sit and be supportive of one another as we get through those first few days. It might be a bit rough. But man, after that part happens, it just gets easier.
It's like climb up the hill so you can ski down the other side, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So we were just talking about modified phase 2.
Right. And so then after modified phase 2, after the 12 days, then we do incorporate additional oil back into the diet. And that's going to be different for every person. Again, like for instance, with the gal that just came on, and this is just fresh in my mind because I was just looking at her plan. She's got a lot of cellular inflammation. It was showing up in a lot of different ways. And so her fat for making salads is actually going to be flax oil as opposed to olive oil. But then she also had clarified butter for cooking, ghee. And so those are the fats that she's going to be incorporating back into her plan at the end of her 12 days. And that's just really the palate. Oh my gosh, the body really appreciates finally bringing in some fat again. The mouth feel of it is just so nice. And again, this is something that's a very significant thing. If a person ever decides that they want to do their plan, like restart every year for some reason, the period of 12 days without oil, that is only recommended one time a year. It's that big of a deal. So it's what we move into next. So then we're working with the foods that are on the plan, plus the oils that are there. And this is kind of the place where we stay until we're about maybe 6-7 pounds shy of what the goal weight is. And again, that goal weight might change and just based off of how you feel. And you may find that, oh my gosh, I'm really liking the way, my clothes are fitting me and the way my body feels and how I'm moving. And so, but when we're around that period of time, that's when we move into phase 3. And phase 3 is where we incorporate a few additional foods that were not on the plan. And that's also when we start working with a weekly treat meal. And a treat meal is, where you're still working with the framework of the 8 1.5 rules, but it's foods that are not on your plan. But, go enjoy a great meal so that you don't feel like you're losing it. And that's wonderful because it's also new information to the body. The body's gotten kind of used to this, it's a variety of foods, but it's, basically the same variety of foods. And so, once a week bringing in a little something like that is very good for the morale, but it's also very good for the metabolism. And so that helps to keep someone on track. And then at the end of that period of time, then they move into phase 4, which is they move back into just the regular foods of everyday life, but with this so much higher level of vitality that they're moving back into that with. It is something that it's neat to have, okay, so, ham wasn't on my plan, but I feel like having some ham. It's neat to be able to do that because you've now created a place where the signals that are coming to the body are very clear. And so let's pick on ham. Let's say we bring in some really high quality ham. But you find that the next day you kind of swell up or, you feel grumpy after you ate it, or maybe your belly ticked up a bit. Then you might say, gosh, I'm not so sure that ham is the right food for me. I thought I really liked it. But before, when I had all this cellular inflammation, I couldn't tell what was bugging me. And maybe it was the ham. So, maybe I'll try that again some other time. But that might be something I don't want to eat a whole lot of. So this awareness, this body awareness, and the relationship that happens to the foods that we eat, that is so powerful. That I love. I mean, because the signals become very clear for the body at that point.
And do you teach, as part of the LAPIS method, do you teach the individual how to have that body awareness, what to look for, when to look for it?
Sure.
That's so important.
Well, because sometimes people don't know it's happened. They don't know that they've been given some information because it's not coming in the format of, oh, that made my stomach hurt. Or, what we would consider a more obvious sign. It could be that, gosh, it made it like I had that whole grain wheat bread. So let's say they've had a treat meal or they are in phase 4 and whatever. And they had a whole wheat organic wheat bread. And it felt good while I ate it, but I was hungry again in an hour and a half or so. And that's pretty weird because I haven't experienced that in a long time, kind of that Chinese takeout food syndrome. And what that is that is some of the naturally occurring types of protein that are in the wheat itself. They actually cause us to crave. They put us on this kind of roller coaster this way. And so our tummy might be actually full, but there's something happening in our brain saying, I kind of want to go grab a snack. So that's a body awareness thing that people, they wouldn't even necessarily know that can happen until we discuss it. And so those are the sorts of things that as someone's going through their 12 weeks of working with me, and we have a private Facebook group, and I really encourage folks to put stuff there because it's amazing to me how much people learn from one another through this. I mean, there's only so much I can share, it's just I try my best, but there's only so much I can share. And the perspectives of what someone else is going through, and then my ability to pop in and say my 2 cents about it, it creates an entire dynamic that I maybe wouldn't even think to put out there. And so we have our private Facebook group, and then we come together 3 times a month for live group calls. And this is another place where, it's put out there, we discuss it. And I love what happens in these calls because no matter where someone is in the program, they're going to be to that other phase eventually.
So they're already learning and they're seeing their peers, ahead of them. That's cool. Yeah.
I love it. I think it is so. I mean, I've done it both ways, and this way is so far superior. I've done it where it's just one on one, you and me, and that's nice. I mean, and if someone wants to, hire me on that way to be that person in their life, we can talk about that. But it's, for the most part, I really like the group interaction a lot better because I just can't think of everything. But as you might tell from our long discussions, I'll usually have something to say once it is.
Right. And I mean, I can definitely, I appreciate one-on-one with any practitioner, but I can really appreciate the dynamic of a group because I love hearing success stories. I also love hearing where people are struggling because I can learn from their triumph, and there's a reason why group therapy and like AA is so effective. And, there's so many, group or even masterminds, right? I was in the most amazing mastermind a few years ago, and just very intense and very wonderful because you seem to, if you get a group together, they seem to attract to one another because they have some things in common, and you're sure to learn something. If you just open your mind, you're sure to learn something. And so I can definitely tell if everyone was on sort of different phases of your plan, there would be those that became more of the teacher because they had been through it, and those who are, and then the beginner mind can bring in new questions that everyone can learn from.
Yes. Yeah. And to go back to, because folks, they just get into ruts. And I'll tell you, that was one of the issues I had with doing just one-on-one coaching was folks, we'd come together for, our one-on-one call, and then they'd go live off on their own for a while, without my being there as much as I am in this kind of more group setting with the Facebook page. And so they'd start going off rails a little bit because here it is, they've had a lifetime, 50, 60, 40 years, whatever, of living a certain way. The people that are around them live that way still. And so to have a community of people who are reinforcing a different behavior pattern is so necessary. Oh my gosh, because it's so easy to go off rails if we don't. I mean, you can keep the 8.5 rules, plugged in front of you in every room of your home, and that's going to help. But to have people, talking about this stuff, it just is completely different.
It's very, very nourishing. I was invited to a dinner celebration the other day by a friend, and the email, there's about 25 people coming, and the email started off with, please only, because it was a sort of a potluck, and please only bring gluten-free, organic, locally sourced food. It starts off like that, and I want to just cry. I'm like, I have found my people. But can you imagine? And most of my friends, wouldn't eat that way. But I have attracted a group of people that has also attracted other friends, and they all appreciate non-GMO, organic, locally sourced, gluten-free, sugar-free food. That whole foods. And and it's like, if you can find your tribe, get in it.
A blessing. It is such a blessing. I know there's annually here, there's this international party our friends host, and it is people from all stripes. And the food that shows up there it would not have fit the descriptor on your invitation. It was like, oh dear. And, I go and I basically ate what I brought. And little nibbles maybe of some other things, but just gut busting. It amazes me what people show up with. And my son is at an age where, I'm like, well, you just get your own plate and, you kind of do your own thing. And in our last discussion, we talked about how he has more bandwidth to work with in terms of his nutrition, because at home we really do some solid things around food. So it lets him go have some dalliances. Well, he dallied too much. And, it was a bummer. He ended up missing school yesterday because he was vomiting all day.
Oh my gosh.
I know. But I tell you, his system is the kind of system where he can only take a couple bouts of food abuse that way. And then within a day, he will get a headache and he will start throwing up. And in Chinese medicine, we recognize that that's a pattern of food stagnation. And So I'm, maybe some parents would freak out about that kind of thing, but I can look right at them and see what's happened. And so I start giving him enzymes. I give him herbs that are for food stagnation, and I let him ride the day out. He stayed home from school, and just have him drink water and eat clean, and he gets over it. But it's tough because here it is, we're in this big social situation. I don't want to be, riding his back saying, don't eat this, don't eat that. And then he spent the night at the house where all the leftovers were. And so, so he had like
It's
3 meals.
hard. It's hard. I grew up in a very restricted household from age 6 to age 13. There was like very, very restricted. And it was really hard whenever I went to friends' homes. I wanted to eat that food because I felt deprived. And no matter how many times my mom told me, but we eat the healthiest, and those people are all going to be sick and in wheelchairs when they're 30 because they eat this crap. And right. I just wanted the Nutella white bread sandwiches. And so, my teen years were filled with rebellion. But the yo-yo can, or the yo-yo, but it can swing. The pendulum can swing. I guess it could yo-yo too. The yo-yo can swing up, down, side, and it certainly did in my case. And so with my son, I've done a lot of talking with my husband and thinking, how can we be these health warriors and eat really clean and also consider the environment for our health, for our children, but at the same time not be so restrictive that they want to eat the junk food when they're not around us. And so I like that you're giving your son the flexibility, and he's going to have to make his own choices because when he goes to college, he's going to have to make his own choices, right? And so he knows that he ate too much and he got sick, and hopefully, it's sort of like, hopefully with drinking, like I drank too much a few times, threw up, and realized very quickly that wasn't for me, right? So hopefully he comes to that. Hopefully he comes to that conclusion. But it is difficult as a parent to do the right thing because, like, you can very easily do the right thing too much. And then it becomes the wrong thing.
And I don't want to be that. I've been that. And it is not in balance. And, Grant, he's 12 now. And I just, like this morning, he's getting ready for school. And I looked at him and I said, you're at an age where you are making these decisions on your own more and more. And you just need to know that your body is a body that can only take so much of that. And then it's going to kick back on you. And it's because the stuff is really just simply not good for you. And it's good you can do a little bit, but you are at an age where you have got to start stepping into making these decisions for yourself. So and you just plant the seed and you just hope it grows in the right direction without it creating a lot of strife in the relationship, which I don't think we have. I hope. We'll see.
Fingers crossed. Funny thing about 12-year-olds, Benjamin Franklin ran his own company, I believe his own company with employees at age 12. I just always think give kids more responsibility than you think they can handle, because
it's it.
That you just give them the responsibility, like hand over the executive function when they are ready to handle the executive function. It's like the Montessori system is, don't do for your child what they can do for themselves, right? So the second they can tie their own shoes, don't ever tie their own shoes again. Unless they're super struggling, right? I know. But it's like, hand over that executive function when they have the cognitive ability to handle it, and give them that responsibility. And just always give kids more responsibility than you think they can handle, and they can surprise us.
Oh, and they do. And I'm so grateful for it. And that is really what I run on. I'm not a helicopter parent. And, we come in all stripes, us parents, and that's not who I am. And it's even in this way with food. And I mean, goodness gracious, just like in your house, I'm sure, Ashley, there's a lot of discussion around, how lame, different food techniques and preparations and whatnot that are out there that are so commonly eaten, and what's happening to the environment, all that. So I mean, that's the common language in the house, but you want it to still be something that, when they're on their own, they're just doing it because they know they do feel better, that it is better for the environment, it's better for the people working the fields, it's all of that. Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
broader awareness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, thinking all the way back to the farm. And I've been actually examining the local farms
Mm,
as this understanding of if they take the time to really care for the soil, if they're not like spraying it with chemicals. And by the way, certified organic, there are 3,000 chemicals that can be used on a certified organic farm.
oh my Lord,
It's
isn't that
not,
insane?
yeah.
I
So
know,
just
I know.
because it's certified organic, now organic's the best because it's you're not going to have glyphosate or other, the crazy stuff. But just because it's organic doesn't mean it's the best. And so if you can take the time to find out where your food comes from, there's a handful of great farms here locally, and I'm starting to take the time to get to know one at a time. And there are some that are so neat. If you can find some local organic farms and get to know them and get to know the farmer, go to their website, if you can call them
Yes.
up or if you can visit them, because some of them are really into biodynamic
Hmm.
farming, and that
Hmm.
is about creating a diversity of bacteria in the soil, which then reflects the
Yes,
healthy bacteria in our gut. And so
absolutely.
the same bacteria that's living on a strawberry, and we eat that strawberry, populates our gut and helps the body to assimilate nutrition from strawberries.
Exactly.
And
I know.
it's
It's the
amazing. It's
symbiosis.
a
I know.
symbiosis. So if you can find
I know.
farms that have living soil, that they really take the time to make sure that the soil is living, and they really they do all those different tasks that help the soil become alive, then the food itself is not only more contains more nutrition, but
Hmm.
and the chemicals itself are now absent because we're not, they're not putting them on.
Correct.
But the bacteria, the healthy bacteria, then help our body to assimilate nutrition. And so there's these layers of why biodynamic organic farming is actually more nutritious in the long run for the body. And so if you can find some of those
Right.
farms, definitely foster a relationship. And locally, I'm so thankful. There's a few of them, and one of them actually has sort of a training that you can even go through and learn how to do it, either for your own homestead or just because you're passionate about it and you want to learn about it. And this
Yes.
farmer loves teaching children and young adults, because we're going to get to a point where we're not going to have farmers.
Oh, I
People are
know.
not taking up the picking up the torch, right? So we need to
That's right.
if it's your calling, you've got to get into biodynamic farming, because that is the wave of the future for sure. And I know we totally got off track, but it is about gut biome.
No, but it is. It is about the gut because again, it's the big mama. I mean, we are all part of the big mama. And so no, it's so true, dear. I mean, everything is set up to support everything else. And that's one of the things and we talked about it a bit in our first discussion. We talked about probiotics. But that's like monoculture. And the thing, like what you were saying there about the strawberries
Yes.
and how the cofactors and the enzymes and the bacteria that are needed to help you digest it, they show up on the strawberry, which is wholly different than the taking of like ascorbic acid, and
Right.
which is, you know what I mean?
Right. I love supplements. Don't get me wrong. I love supplements,
do.
but
I do
if I
too.
take the same gut flora supplement every day that maybe contains 10 or 20 strains, that's only 10 or 20. And I know that sounds, oh, look, there's 30 strains in here.
I
Yeah,
know.
but there are 30,000 out there I could be getting in my gut. I mean, how many do you have? How many strains do you have in your gut?
Oh my Lord. It's it's multiple trillions is what it is. And I think, like I mentioned in our last discussion,
Yes,
my
people want to
super diverse.
people want
And
to pay you for your
for my
stool.
yes.
Yes, I think it's actually really cool. It's really weird, but it's really cool.
But it is, and
Yeah.
it's because of this, and I get it. But it's only come about because of the life I live, and it could
Hmm.
be even better. I mean, it should be better. I should be at 100%. I shouldn't be at 91%. I should be at 100%. Why not? I need to be out there in the forest more, foraging, eating the foods that are truly, wild growing, that are safe to consume, that are in my area. I don't do that to the degree that is potential for me. Someday I may, but you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
guess it's is there's just always room for growth and improvement is what it
Absolutely.
comes down.
I love that you're doing that with your clients as well, and you're helping them no matter where they are. You're going to help them improve. This kind of just popped in my mind, but
Yeah.
so raw, I know, like raw vegan, right? I'm not saying people should be vegan if, because I don't think it's for everyone, but eating raw foods is what carries the healthy bacteria into the body, right? If you cook it, the bacteria
Right.
dies.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's a heat point. And so you're spot on there. And in fact, people are so into probiotics, but prebiotics are an incredibly important part of what we're talking about here. And interestingly, in the standard metabolic balance plan, it's not that fermented foods, well, I don't want to say that. So like in America, we think of fermented foods and we might think of things like kimchi and sauerkraut and stuff like that, or water kefir, kombucha. But in this European-based plan, the fermented foods will show up as, cheese or yogurt, maybe sauerkraut, but it's not that it's like heavy duty fermented foods at every meal. It's not like that at all. However, what does show up are foods that are rich in prebiotic fibers, and that could be legumes, so beans. If grains show up on someone's plan, that can be a terrific source of prebiotic fibers. And of course, different types of vegetables and fruits. And so the nourishment that is needed for the large intestine cells themselves, as well as the bacteria that do reside within us, are to be found in these foods themselves, not necessarily fermented foods, but the whole food itself before it's gone through a fermentation cycle.
So just so for clarification for listeners, a probiotic is the healthy gut bacteria that we really, really want, and we want a diversity of it. And prebiotics is the food that feeds it.
Yes, exactly.
Now,
exactly.
I had a guest once say that everything you eat is a prebiotic. It depends on what you want to feed.
Oh, yes. And it's true. And I totally get where they're going with that. And it's true.
Because you could be feeding yeast, right? You could be eating donuts, eat some Krispy Kremes, and that's I'm going to eat my prebiotic Krispy Kreme donuts and feed the unhealthy yeast in my gut.
Candida, right? Exactly. We're going to proliferate in that direction. It's an interesting thing. So let's pick on Candida for a minute because it's a popular thing to pick on. The thing about Candida is it's a naturally occurring part of every human gut biome. It's a matter of keeping it in check, of keeping it in balance in its proper place in relation to the other bacteria and yeast, viral matter that live within us, that are part of this natural ecology. And so you're exactly right. Krispy Kremes, refined foods, juices, and I'm not talking about fresh juices. I'm talking about pasteurized juices, candy, of course. I mean, the obvious hitters, those are the things that lend themselves toward that proliferation of greater Candida growing in the system, and less of the types of bacteria and the like that, maybe reside more in a thin person's tummy, a healthy thin person's tummy. And so, that guest is spot on that you had. It's if we want the good result, we can't be feeding ourselves something that's going to deliver anything other than that good result.
Right.
I mean, it's real plain, and it's a super obvious thing to say, but it's not practiced. It's like, it's the definition of insanity is, continuing to do things exactly as you've done and expect a different outcome.
And I think that is the yo-yo dieting thing. I think that there's like a million diet books out there, and that is the definition of insanity. And I was on that train for many years thinking and just hoping and praying and begging that the next diet I came across would be the one to answer all my questions. And the answer is not in a diet. It's not,
No.
because a diet that's coming at the problem from a completely wrong standpoint. We need to get back to the root of the problem. And that's what you've done here. And I love that you married the metabolic balance method, which has a strong foundation in science for many years, with this, ever evolving system that you discovered first to heal you and then heal your family over 7 years. And then you taught it to practitioners, and they saw results with their patients and clients. And this idea of including more and more foods that feed the gut in a healthy way to get the maximum amount of gut biome. And I've been all about taking probiotics for a long time, but again, I'm getting these only these strains. So if you take probiotics, you're only gonna get those strains. But when you eat the way that you're teaching in the LAPIS method, they're going to achieve a much higher quality of gut biome. And of course, that is linked to helping the body metabolize in such a way that it does not become obese.
Exactly. And again, we're setting the stage for that healthy biome to maintain a healthy weight. And this is what happens, okay, so people go off rails. Oh my gosh, I was with my family, we went on vacation for 2 weeks and I couldn't plan my meals and so on and so forth. When we've done the heavy lifting like we do at the beginning of someone's plan, and we really start dialing back the cellular inflammation, it's amazing to me how somebody can kind of go off rails a little bit. And at first, they really don't notice a big shift in their weight. And then when they say, oh gosh, I really was feeling a lot better when I was just following the structure of the plan, they bring themselves back onto it, and they so quickly and easily fall in step with the structure again. It's like there's this knowing. And so part of that, I do believe, is that shift, that deeper shift that happens within the gut with the biome, and the relationship, the informational exchange that happens between the biome, what's happening there, and how that drives our behavior in terms of how we live. And so it becomes, again, this very positive, synergistic experience of, actually, that felt pretty good. I was looking good. My body was functioning better. And it's not hard to get back on the framework of doing this. And in fact, at this point for me, because I've been following this framework for a few years, and that whole thing I was talking about the thickening of the middle, that just is so the non-issue now. I'm so grateful to say that, because I'm not getting any younger. And to think about eating at like a 3-hour mark right now, that does not appeal to me at all. And I used to be a total grazer, but what I just know it would make me feel kind of thick in my head. It would be disruptive to my digestion. I would feel bloated. And it's because everything would be kind of cramped in on itself, as opposed to giving this proper birth, this space between meals. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes your second nature. But it's like anything, Ashley, at the beginning, you've got to put the framework in there and push it hard so that it happens and it does become that second nature. To me, that's the power of it. Mm-hmm. Is when it's like, oh yeah, that's how it is. That's how I live. And it's no big deal. And it's funny because, like, as I work with people in their plans, they'll say, well, what should I do? I'm out to, I'm going to be traveling and so on and so forth. There are just some times when we can't control what we're being fed, because, we're out, at a business dinner or something. I don't know. I mean, there can just be different things. But what we can do is we can pace ourselves. At the very least, we can pace ourselves. And so when people find themselves in those types of situations as they come up, that's why I just say, go back to those 8.5 rules. Just follow the structure. At the very least, just follow the structure. And that is going to get you through this period here. And if you have to eat foods that are not on your plan for a few days, continue to follow the structure. It's so key. And it's amazing because they come out the other side and they're like, oh, I didn't gain any weight. I even lost a couple pounds maybe. I mean, it's just so cool. It's so cool. But there's heavy lifting at the beginning we have to do.
Do you have any, off the top of your head, can you remember any results from those who've gone through the LAPIS method, like that they've gotten off medication, that they no longer have diabetes or pre-diabetes, that their fertility increased or their migraines went away? Can you remember any, general things that, that have been significant that have healed by going through the program?
Absolutely. I mean, I think of one gal who first came to see me. We did a lot of food sensitivity testing on her, and she had very, very severe polycystic ovarian syndrome. And over time, eventually she started working with me through Metabolic Balance and the LAPIS Method type support. And now her husband's into this framework of how to do this as well. And they are finally at a place where they are able to start truly looking at not just having a family, because, that's going to be wonderful for them to finally become pregnant, but the recognition that they both have, and believe me, these were the ultimate junk food eaters, the recognition that they both have that now we are living a healthy lifestyle, that we are going to, when we do become pregnant, we are going to be bringing the baby into a home that recognizes the value of sound nutrition and putting those practices into place so that we break the cycle of what has been going on generationally for both of our families. Awesome. I totally love that. So, I mean, that's one example right there. But I mean, so often, folks will come in and their blood sugar is high and they may be pre-diabetic and not even know it. Like I get these numbers back, and it's not part of being a coach for Metabolic Balance to sit there and, go on with someone about, what their lab values are about. But I mean, I've had enough education around that I can look at that and say, oh my, yeah, it's really good. High time that we get in here and start reversing what some of these numbers are. And so, and then of course with pain as well, chronic pain is showing up because of this cellular inflammation pattern that we're talking about. And so to begin to dial all of that back is, it's such a beautiful, profound thing. Again, the gal I'm working with right now, just super messed up thyroid. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen in terms of her need for medication as we keep her going in the program. She's only in it for a week. And so, we're off to a robust beginning here, but it's, her MD knows that she's doing this, and they're very well may need to be some tweaking that happens with her thyroid medication.
It makes total sense because the more the body is efficient, especially after losing the cellular inflammation like you had discussed, but the more the body has nutrition and the more it's efficient, it needs less medication to nudge it over into that that frame of reference. And yeah, exactly. And because it's just amazes me because I've worked with supplements and with people for so long. For the last 6 years, but I've seen
that's good.
People who, for example, on high blood pressure medication, then they got on obviously changed their diet, but they got on a multi-mineral, especially with magnesium. And a few months later, they call me up and say, by the way, my doctor took me off of my blood pressure medication that I've been on my whole life. I've even had a 26-year-old who was on 2 forms of blood pressure medication since she was 12, and she called me up, and I didn't know, but I just helped her pick out the right supplements based on, she's shared with me some kind of things that she was going through, and of course diet, right? She went for her, vegan works, and she did it, and it's really paying off for her. And then she added some supplements that were just complementing what her body really needed. And then she called me up 2 months later to say, by the way, my doctor took me off my medications and I can't believe how good I feel. And I was like, I didn't know you're on medications. Like, cause I just
Isn't that amazing?
Right? And she said, yeah, since I was 12. Can you believe 12-year-old was put on high blood pressure medications, but the body doesn't have a blood pressure medication deficiency. The body has a mineral deficiency, right? And so it doesn't function properly. If you have a nutrient deficiency, you don't function properly. But doctors are prescribing the wrong thing. They're not prescribing nutrition. They're prescribing drugs, artificial things. I mean, just don't get me started. I'm going to get on my soapbox.
Oh, no. And it's true. But, sweetie, my golly, I mean, it's no different than what we were talking about, like with your period. It's like, oh, take your ibuprofen, go on the pill. I mean, do all these things rather than respond to the message that the body is trying to deliver. I mean, in this instance, with this gal, with her thyroid being as inactive as it is, if it weren't for this thyroid medication, she very well might not be with us today. But the reason it's needed is because there's all this lifestyle that led to such a flabby response at her thyroid. So what we're doing is we're going backward on that. We're digging her out of the hole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes. And that's why my podcast is here. That's why you're here. We want to teach people teach the listeners and spread this information so that we can help us to come back to this natural lifestyle to prevent, getting our body in such a crisis that it needs that intervention. I believe in drugs. I believe that drugs have their place. It's an intervention that is saving lives, but it is the tool that is used too much, too often, and then there's no follow-up or education because the MDs aren't trained the MDs aren't trained in a holistic medicine, right? The MDs are trained in drugs, but we are taught as a society to go to an MD for chronic illness when we could be going to a naturopath or going to a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, acupuncturist, health coach, going to other professionals that is going to help someone to bring balance back to their body. But medications are like, I would rather someone be on an antidepressant than be suicidal, right? That's so like always has its place, right?
I know.
But when I hear that a 12-year-old is put on 2 medications and there's no follow-up of why is the body presenting these symptoms and how can we support you? But when MDs believe the reason why you have knee pain is because you're getting older, because you're getting older is not an answer.
No.
I don't care if you're 60 or 90, because you're getting older is not an answer. There's knee pain for a very good reason, and the body is telling you something, and we need to help the body heal. And medication is only a stopgap. So
it is, and you're exactly right. And I mean, in this instance, I'm grateful that she had this to get her to this point. She had the Synthroid. She's an awesome human being, and I'm stoked she's here, and I'm just really stoked that we're actually bringing some vitality to her life finally. And so you're exactly right. And I do not poo-poo Western medicine. It's incredible in so many ways, but there are so many other ways that people need support that it just isn't designed to help. And so it's true. That's why, folks like you and me, that's why we show up, because there are lots of other really profound ways to help the body truly heal so that we can leave Western medicine to be what Western medicine is really good at, which is, emergency medicine when it's needed. It shines at that. Don't come see me for acupuncture if your arm's chopped off. I don't want to see you. You go to the hospital.
Right. Now, I have another question, and that's at the beginning we talked about some people that might not be good for the LAPIS method, which is those who are so restricted. So maybe someone who's gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, egg-free, a bunch of other things, and they're only eating like 6 foods. And I know some people like that, and they've they've gotten to the point where they've, painted themselves into a corner. And their body, if they really go outside of that in any way, the body just blows up in inflammation. They feel so sick. Right. What's going on? We got to help them. So LAPIS might not be right for them right now, but I seem to think that, and I know we discussed this, is that when we introduce a more diverse gut biome, the body actually becomes just so much stronger in being able to digest and handle a more diverse diet. And so for someone who's only might be exaggerating by saying only eating 6 foods, but I know people who can only eat 20 foods, for example.
Right.
So for those people who are just oh, do I have to give up another food today? Do I have to, what am I going to just be like drinking bone broth? Like, what am I going to be living on air? For those kind of people, by starting to introduce more and more fermented or cultured foods, and also they've got to make sure they get the prebiotics to feed them within what they can handle right now. If they start to do that, can they start to, have you seen this where they can then in the future handle dairy, or they can in the future, like, does the body come to a point where it now can handle the things it couldn't?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I do believe that can happen, but there isn't a one size fits all.
Yes.
And so, some people have major issue with histamine and not being able to clear that. And so for those people working with, fermented foods that have been long fermented, like sauerkraut or kimchi or kombucha, that has too much histamine. And so they're going to react to that. And so it's a deeper dive. And so making a general statement of, yeah, you definitely need to bring in more fermented foods is something that even that can be a bit dodgy.
My friend actually does have too much histamine, and that's what her naturopath has most recently discovered. So for those who are on an antihistamine diet, is there a way to bring in a more diverse biome without eating heavily fermented foods? What would be your advice in that regard?
Right. That is where maybe working with a little bit of water kefir, which tends to be like a 1 to 2 day fermentation cycle, or some homemade yogurt, possibly with goat milk. That is a little bit of that could be good. Maybe a little bit of homemade milk kefir. Again, these are short ferments, but they deliver on a lot of good bacteria. And so that might be just a little bit of that stuff. For these folks too, I would also recommend that they give that space between meals. That is also very important, of that 5 hours. And in those instances as well, obviously the other foods that can lend themselves toward, flaring up a little bit. So the aged cheeses, and again, the things like sardines or anchovies, actually, those are the sorts of foods that we definitely want to pull back from. But I think in a balanced body, most people should be able to handle a balanced diet. And so slowly but surely working with slowly increasing the diversity in the diet, but still working with the structure that we'll have, like on the 8.5 rules. That's a super important thing, just so the biome, the body, the inflammatory process that is kind of on red alert, has that period of time to do a little bit of healing between meals. And we start dialing that back. So that's, and I would definitely, of course, at the beginning, not be working with foods that we know cause the flare that way. And it may be that those types of foods maybe need to really kind of stay off of the menu for that person. Yeah, to me, as we talked about in our first conversation, the sign of a strong body is the ability to have that diversity. And so until that happens, I just feel like there's always some more room for improvement.
I love that you have this wonderful experience. Like I said, I love that you invented the LAPIS method through so many years of working with your clients and your own body and your family and with other practitioners, and then marrying it with the Metabolic Balance method, which just makes so much sense. So I am super thrilled, and I'm super thrilled to learn more, and I definitely want to do it, and I'd love. I'm
excited
listeners.
for you too.
Yeah, I know.
I can't wait, Ashley.
I can't wait to share my results. And listeners who are interested in learning more, or maybe even doing it with me, please go to learntoyourhealth.com/lapis. So it's LAPIS, and to get the 8.5 rules. I'm so, don't tell us, because I'm like, I'm actually like, what's the half rule, right? Don't tell us. We're gonna have to. You want to know what the 8.5 rules are? You got to go to learntoyourhealth.com/lapis and get that, and then and that's of course your free gift for our wonderful listeners. And then I know there's gonna be some listeners who are like me, eager to try this, because I know that my body would shed some weight, but that's like the again, my litmus test for living a healthier life is that my body's going to naturally do that. What I'm really excited about is getting a diverse gut biome, because I now know so many of the health benefits that come with that. And then, of course, this lifestyle, this way of eating that incorporates gentle detoxing every day. Is so important, especially because, maybe we didn't need it so much 50 years ago. Maybe we weren't exposed to it, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. We were not exposed to the amount of chemicals we're exposed to now. But we definitely now need to take a proactive stance to combat what our body is being bombarded with on a daily basis. And so I love that this method really is that active stance.
Yes, thank you. Gosh, you sum it up so beautifully. I love that, Ashley. You just nail it. And it's so true. And again, it's the reinforcement of it, just so that this becomes our second nature. And it allows us then to live in this world and, not be so owned by the things that we can't control. It gives us back, a sense of a little bit of play with that. And that is so important. So good. Thank you for summing it up that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. You're welcome back anytime. Now let's just plug your book that you are relaunching.
Yeah, The Funky Kitchen. It's going to be on Amazon. And I was just right before we got on our call, I was working out the formatting for Kindle, so for an ebook as well. So that'll be the second version of The Funky Kitchen, and definitely some upgrades to what I had the first time.
Awesome. And the link to The Funky Kitchen is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast. So you definitely want to check that out. It also makes a great gift because fermenting, I think everyone should experiment. It's a lot easier than you think. It's a lot of fun. I was just on Facebook the other day, and one of my friends it's so funny. It's like one of those friends that a few years go by and we live fairly close to each other. And then all of a sudden, we connect and even though we've been apart for a few years, we seem to always, find the same things. So like, funny. A few years went by, and then we actually both were, because we're up here in Seattle, and then Facebook said your friend is nearby, and I was in San Francisco or San Diego, and we ended up going out for sushi together because she just happened to be there at the same time we were down there at the same time, and then she was sharing with us that she was getting into eating organic and going more paleo, and we were like, oh my god, that's how we eat now. And it was so funny. And then the next time awesome. It was like she was into the ketogenic diet at the same time we were in the ketogenic diet, and now and she's like dropped 80 pounds and she's looking amazing, and she's made so many, like she quit smoking and all this stuff. And then the other day and again, I haven't seen her in a year, and on Facebook what pops up is, this is my first kombucha culture, and I'm like, I freaked out.
Oh my gosh.
The third time it's happened, where it's like I had started my ferment for my first sauerkraut, and she was doing her first kombucha, and so I told her we need to have our fermentation party, and she was like, yes, let's exchange our fermented foods. So if you can,
I love it. That is so yay.
It's so neat. So yeah, I think she'd love your book. I should get it for her as a gift. And it's like you, if everyone has a friend out there who you like doing potlucks or exchanging foods and stuff like that, if you guys can get into fermenting together, it's like, okay, unlimited. You make the kefir, I'll make the kombucha, or you make the sauerkraut and I'm gonna make the yogurt. You could get enough friends together and then share everyone's, so then, because I'm thinking to myself, man, I've got to make water kefir, and I've got to make goat yogurt, and I'm just like listing all these things in my head that I want to make. But if I got like 10 friends together, we could we could all be culturaling our guts together,
I love that. That is so good. Oh my dear.
And we can have funky kitchen parties.
Oh my gosh, just invite me.
Yeah, and it's like, instead of having a potluck, we'll just have like a ferment luck.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like so much fun. I would be there.
Yeah, I think like meetup.com, I want this episode to go so viral, like in a few years, meetup.com has a whole section for fermenting parties. Be so much
I love
fun.
it. Oh my gosh. And everyone will be so happy and having so much fun.
Right?
It really does. It elevates. It's
Yeah.
so
Well,
cool.
your
Yeah.
gut will make more serotonin, right? So it's
Yes.
actually, if you eat from a little bit of fermented foods every day,
Yep.
you have a healthier gut. Your healthier gut makes a
Yep.
healthier immune system and makes healthy neurotransmitters. So you
That's
it
it.
actually will bring you out
You
of
really are
depression.
happier.
It'll help you balance your blood sugar. It'll help you like lose weight or not
Oh
have,
my
you know,
gosh.
I mean, just like look at all the benefits. It all starts in the gut, right? So we
It
need to come
does. It
back to this
does.
place where we're celebrating foods that are alive.
Yes, I love it. That is beautiful.
Yes.
So good. All right,
Awesome.
put me on the invitation list, girl.
Fantastic. Well, listeners, please go to the show notes of today's podcast so you can get the 8.5 rules by going to learntrail.com/lapis and order The Funky Kitchen, the latest edition on Amazon. You can get the link there in the show notes. And stay tuned because during and after the Lapis Method, I'm sure I will be a new person. And
I cannot wait.
awesome. It's been a wonderful having you on the show. Again, you
So
are
good,
welcome back
Ashley.
anytime.
Thank you, dear. Everybody take good care. I look forward to staying connected.
Enjoy what you heard today on your episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Did something move you, inspire you? Did you get great information that's going to change your life? Awesome. That's exactly what I'm here to do, is to help you gain your health back. Please turn around and share this. If this is something that's helped you in any way, share this with those you love. Love the Learn True Health podcast and want to support us? Awesome. You can go to takeyoursupplements.com and you can support us that way. You'll get access to amazing supplements that are just really great quality for a great price. And there'll be someone on the other end of the line to help you pick out your supplements that are right for you. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Or join our membership, learntruehealth.com/join. That's another great way to support our podcast, support our movement, and you'll be supporting yourself. Gain more information, wonderful videos, wonderful trainings, and you'll also be able to share those with those you love as well. So go to learntruehealth.com/join. Want something fun for free? Go to learntruehealth.com and right there on the front page, you'll see where you can get our free cookbook. I spent a lot of time making it and it was so much fun. It's really delicious, healthy recipes. And you can also get our 7-day doctor course right there. It's 7 days of naturopathic videos sent right to your inbox, and you can learn from top naturopaths on how to gain health naturally. So that's takeyoursupplements.com for wonderful supplements. learntruehealth.com/join to join our awesome membership, which is only open for a limited time. You can get our free healthy cookbook, and you can also get for free 7 days of wonderful naturopathic videos sent to you. Just go to learntruehealth.com and you'll see it right there on the front page. Thank you so much for being a listener, and thank you for sharing and helping others. Let's spread this information and turn this ripple into a tidal wave.